time being 6 o'clock, and this being the Plymouth Select Board, I will call to order this, the Tuesday, July 15th, 2025 meeting of Plymouth's Select Board. Please join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. So tonight's meeting of the Plymouth Select Board is taking place in a hybrid format. We have members of the board joining us here in person at the South Elementary School cafeteria. We may have a member of the board joining us virtually over the Zoom webinar platform. Members of the public are also joining us here in person at the South Elementary cafeteria and also may be joining us over the Zoom webinar platform. Members of the public who are interested in participating in this meeting may join us in either of those formats. The login information for the Zoom webinar platform is included on the agenda that is posted on the town website. Members of the public can also watch this meeting on Comcast. Spicy. So, members of the public can also watch this meeting on Comcast Channel 9 or Verizon Channel 47. All right, so, and members of the public are also reminded that pursuant to Massachusetts general law, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of the Select Board after notifying the chair, subject to reasonable requirements of the chair, so as not to interfere with the conduct of the meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any recordings. Presently, we are aware of recordings being made by the local scene for the broadcast on the local scenes TV networks, as well as the Zoom webinar platform and YouTube streaming channel. All right, so with that out of the way, that brings us into tonight's agenda. So tonight is the second in a series of meetings. Like Willie Nelson before us, we are on the road again. We are joining us here are members of the public from the South Elementary School region, as well as throughout the community. So we appreciate those that came out to join us, and certainly those that will be joining us over the Zoom when we get to that as well. But before we get into the main purpose of tonight's meeting, we do have two administrative notes on our agenda. So wish of the board in regards to the two administrative notes.
Motion to approve administrative notes 1 and 2.
All right, Mr. Golden has moved that we approve administrative notes 1 and 2. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Iaquinto has seconded. Any discussion about whether or not we should approve administrative notes 1 and 2? Ms. Iaquinto?
Just a question, Mr. Canty. The first administrative note is about opening the fall town meeting warrant.
Yes.
And I know this is my first year through, and I'm sure that there are others out there in TV land that might be wondering what that means.
Sure.
I just thought maybe just a really quick explanation about what happens when we
Sure.
do that.
Okay, that's a good question, Ms. Iaquinto. So Plymouth has a representative town meeting form of government. We have town meetings every fall and every April. And what is called a warrant, it's not like an arrest warrant or a search warrant. It's a warrant in the sense of we warn the populace what is going to be heard at our town meeting, whether it be a fall or a spring. When the warrant opens, that's the opportunity for the town boards and committees, or schools, or citizens to submit warrant articles. So a warrant article needs to be complete, including its backup information, by the close of the warrant on Friday, August 8th, and submitted to the town in order to be included for consideration on the warrant. That applies to all of those relevant parties. The Select Board, generally speaking, with some exceptions, controls the warrant for town meeting, meaning let's say the DPW wanted to put a warrant article to buy 10 new dump trucks, and the select board said, no, that's not a good idea. The DPW's article could be submitted by them, but would not be accepted for inclusion on that warrant if we didn't agree with that. However, the select board does not control and cannot stop a citizen's petition article from going on the warrant or an article from the Community Preservation Committee. So if the Community Preservation Committee submits an article, whether the select board likes it or not, it goes on that warrant, and a citizen article, whether the select board likes it or not, goes on that warrant. And for a regular and annual town meeting, for a citizen's petition requires 10 signatures to get on the warrant. So that is, the warrant opens, or will open, on Tuesday, July 29th, and it will close on Friday, August 8th.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or discussions about the two administrative notes? All right, hearing and seeing none, I will call for a vote about said administrative notes. Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinta?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
And myself, yes. It is unanimous. We have approved the two administrative notes. All right. So that brings us into the next item on our agenda, which is the town manager's report. We're going to have a special edition of that tonight. It's going to be an assistant town manager's report being provided by Mr. Janau. Now, normally when we have a select board meeting at the Great Hall, a town hall, or elsewhere up north in the community, we have this a little later in the agenda. But what we want to do with these on the roads is we want to give some basic information at the outset of the meeting from the town that may inform some of the questions or prompt even some questions from residents. So this assistant town manager's report is going to be a little different because it's going to be tried to be tailored to issues related to this part of Plymouth and anything else of note that members in Plymouth generally should know. But with that out of the way, Mr. Janau.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As Mr. Canty said, I am Sylvia Janau, and I'm your assistant town manager. And as he also said, he stole a little bit of my thunder because I was prepared to say the same thing. Tonight, you'll be getting two new things, an assistant town manager's report instead of the town manager's report, and one tailored or with a little bit more of a South Plymouth flavor. So having said that, we're going to talk about the Bourne Road Fire Station project. I spoke to the chief earlier today, and he's happy to announce that that project is moving right along. Our consultant right now is working on schematics, and they have done a preliminary site and geotechnical study of the location, which is the first phase of any design project for either a building or any construction that we do. So the next phase of that will be to take that information, we will put it into what are construction and bidding documents so that at a later time we can start bidding for construction. But as of right now, everything is going right along. The next topic is in the 2022 Fall Town Meeting, Article 15 was passed, which was to allow to lower the speed limits in thickly settled areas from 30 to 25 miles per hour, and I'm happy to announce as well that the DPW has an agenda item for next meeting. They'll be presenting this to the select board and explaining how we got to where we got to and the next steps. So a little bit of a preview of that is that after town meeting basically votes and allows for the town to accept the Mass General Law that allows for this to happen, then the select board has to pick the locations where this is going to happen. So the DPW has been doing a lot of studies and gathering a lot of information on where we could do this around town, and they will be presenting this to the board next week for the board to take a vote, and then we begin implementation. So I apologize that it's taking a little bit long, but some of these things take a little bit of time so that we can make sure we do them right, but we're moving right along with that project as well. Next up is the road work that everybody saw coming on the way in, is the intersection of Halfway Pond and Long Pond. As everybody saw today, there were drums there, there were construction, widening of the road, there were pipes on the ground. So as you can see, things are progressing. And yeah, I know it's been a long time, but we're really making progress right now. The project started a couple of months ago, I would say sometime in April, but now it's really going in earnest with the relocation of utilities, which is the first thing that needs to happen in order to accommodate the new roadway that is going to be there. So the next phase of the project involves the widening of the road, which you have seen already. A little bit of the sides have been cleared out. and which, again, is going to be scheduled to really go in earnest sometime this month. That will be followed by the following: guardrail installation, sidewalk installation, traffic equipment installation, and finally, the final paving of coating of asphalt, which should happen at some point in time in September. So you should see a lot of progress happening now in the summertime, ending just after school starts at some point in time. And then moving on to a couple of other items, the Atlantic Golf property, which is something that we've been working on very recently. We have a minor update, and that is that the town has received a response from the letter that we've sent the attorney of the prospective prospective buyer, and that at this point, we are reviewing that letter so that we can understand what they submitted to us, and then we can say, okay, we'll review this, we'll respond, and send the letter to the attorney of the prospective buyer soon. So we're currently working on that as we speak. Another thing that maybe not be to South Plymouth, but is also of interest to the town, been happening for a long time, is this Route 80 cemetery. The DPW director literally sent me an email a couple hours ago to let me know that the town will be issuing an invitation for bids for the Route 8 cemetery to be advertised on July 17th. So that's also moving along. And finally, I would like to announce the retirement of Fire Lieutenant Mark Milroy and firefighter James Kittredge. Lieutenant Milroy served the town for 45 years and firefighter Kittredge for 27 years and 10 months. That is pretty impressive. So, yes. So at this point, I would like to take the opportunity on behalf of the town to thank them both for their long-term dedication. We really appreciate everything they did and everything our firefighters do right now. So, pending any questions, like the town manager likes to say, that's my report.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Janau, and we certainly congratulate those firefighters on their years of service and hope they enjoy their retirement. Well deserved. Does any member of the board have any questions for the assistant town manager at this time? Okay. All right. If there are no questions, Mr. Janau will also be available if we have any questions throughout the meeting for him as well. So we appreciate that. But that brings us into the main purpose of tonight's meeting, and that being hearing from members of the public in our public question and answer session. So members of the public that watched the first version of this that we did back in Cedarville last month will be familiar with the format. So we are going to do, if you are a speaker, we're going to ask that you, if you're here in person, you come up to this microphone, because that's where the cameras are centered on, and that way you'll be able to be heard by everybody in the room as well as those on the Zoom or watching on television. When you ask a question, you don't have to ask a question. You could just speak for 3 minutes. You'll have 3 minutes when you come up and speak. If you're going to come up and ask us a question, we'd ask that you restrict yourself when you're coming up each time to a topic that you'd like to talk about. You will have that 3 minutes to make a statement and then make a question that we would then field. And then we will see if there's anyone else in the physical audience or the Zoom audience that wants to ask questions on that topic. We'll do that up to 3 questions in a row on a single topic, and then we'll move on to another topic. We're doing that so that if there's 10 people here that want to talk about one thing, but there's 5 people in the back that want to talk about 5 other things, we don't have a meeting that is entirely too focused on one item. We don't have a time limit on this meeting, so we can circle back and repeat topics that were covered once we've covered the variety of topics that people want to cover. But just we're looking for those 3 questions in a row before we move on, just to give everybody an opportunity to talk about the things that they're interested in talking about. But again, we will circle back, and people will be allowed to come up and speak again on a different topic. That is, the point is not to limit what you have to say, just to try and keep things so that everybody gets a chance to be heard. So with that in mind, and I will be giving preference to those that are physically here in person as opposed to over Zoom, but we will try and get through everybody that is here that wants to speak. I think if you took the time to come here in person, I'd like to acknowledge and recognize that. All right? So with that in mind, do we have any members of the public physically in attendance that would like to come to the mic and speak for up to 3 minutes or ask us a question? And we are joined by Mr. McKay.
Yeah, George McKay, Precinct 8 Chair. I want to thank you for getting out into the community. I know this is the second one you're doing. I was at the first one. I think things went very well, so I want to thank you again for that. I have a prepared statement that should be under 2 minutes, and then I want to ask some questions. This is a follow-up from the previous time that I was on the floor. The current development related to the sale of 41 Hedges Pond Road for light industrial use and the clearing of the land and sand mining that was allowed, there is a possible danger to the health of some Cedarville residents. The property lies to the west of the closed Cedarville landfill. The Cedarville landfill was closed about 1995, and it was capped but not sealed or lined. The changes in the property, which is upstream from the old landfill, has an impact on the aquifer, and thus it may affect, i.e. contaminate, the well water supply of Cedarville residences that are located between that site and the Cape Cod Bay. On a long-term basis, the state of Massachusetts is likely to pass legislation focused on sand mining. H.R. 948 proposes a one-year moratorium on sand mining, and H.R. 918 proposes a 2-year study of sand mining, its negative effects, and suggestions on how to control these negative effects. Cedarville, however, has an immediate need to define its effects locally to protect its citizens. When the Cedarville landfill was capped, the town extended the water supply so that residences did not have to rely on well water. This expansion of town water may not have been enough given the current situation of changes in the underground aquifer from current developments. The town may need to expand its water infrastructure to protect additional people very soon. Current information from the DPW Water Division shows a next annual test is due soon, and it also shows one sampling well needs repair or replacement. So, having said all that and bringing everybody up to date, here are my 3 questions for the Select Board and Town Management. When will the sampling well be fixed? What is the cost of sampling Cedarville landfill area more frequently than once a year? And then, finally, what is the demarcation line in Cedarville between the town water availability and private wells? And those are the 3 questions.
Okay. So in regards to the Cedarville landfill, so the town is currently looking at the Cedarville landfill for a variety of reasons. One being there's a project being proposed by the Department of Energy and Environment to put a solar array on the landfill, and part of that process would potentially involve additional coverage of it beneath where the current lining is, and above where the current lining is, to improve that lining infrastructure. That is being considered. I've met with David Gould about that, and they're looking at the economics of whether they want to keep the landfill in the current situation that it's in or add additional soil to it, which could then potentially be seen as a lining as opposed to just a cap. So that is being actively worked on and monitored. In terms of the demarcation line between town and public, I mean, that varies because there's private wells throughout the community, and there's public water in the areas where there's public water. The town is very cognizant of what goes into the public water that we have, sampling throughout the community. I know there are some members in the community that also do, whether it be watershed associations or other groups throughout the community that do a variety of other sampling techniques and practices throughout the year. But that is an ongoing process that the town continues to work on regularly. Does any other members of the board have anything? Or Mr. Janau, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, thank you. Let's see. 1, 2, testing, 1, 2, nothing. All right. When it comes to the cost of sampling, Mr. McKay, we can certainly reach out to the water super. There we go. Thank you. We can reach out to the water superintendent, the DPW, and get you that cost. But more importantly, as Mr. Canty was saying, when it comes to the locations where the town has town water, there's actually a map on our website. If you go under departments, public works, and water, there is a link about halfway down that says water system map. So you can click on that and it'll bring a map of the entire town showing the different water zones or pressure zones, as we call them, and the different pipes in the different roads that we have available up to their size. Different water mains from, interestingly enough, 2-inch water main, which I didn't know was a thing. So from 2 to 20-inch water mains. But all that information is up on our website. So if you want to look at a specific area, you can start with the map. And if you can't find that location, please feel free to give us a call. Thank you.
Mr. Colden?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also add that the Public Health Division has water quality reports up on their website as well. So in addition to seeing the map, you can go on and see all the testing that's been done in the community prior to this year.
All right. Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. McKay. Anyone else have any questions on the Cedarville landfill? I imagine water may come up in other capacities, so yes, please come to the microphone and identify yourself.
My name is Paul Smith. I live at 127 Ellisville Road, have lived there for over 35 years. I go by the Hedges Pond landfill, as it was known in its early days. And I want to clarify on some of the points. For instance, speaking with Mr. Gould, my wife Rosemary and I have met with him. We've showed him testing of our well. We are less than a half a mile as the crow flies from this landfill. We're aware of its history. We've researched its history. We've discussed it with him. We know it's at the end of its tenure this year or next year, okay, when monitoring would stop, even though possibly could be continued. And the state has recommended for closed landfills that have bleached, and there is evidence of that bleaching. That is why the downstream neighborhoods in Cedarville have municipal water. It was as a result that their water was fouled. So the landfill is in contact with the aquifer. The aquifer is a naturally flowing underground river of sorts ending up in the bay. But with the 3 or 4 or more land mining operations that are now entailed upstream of the landfill, we believe that that flow is going to change. And all that we would ask, or the least we would ask, is that it be monitored to ensure that that is not the case. We are close to it, but we have a natural well going down 60 feet into the ground. Over 20 of our neighbors are in the exact same condition. So even though the maps might well show that there are areas served by municipal water, there are as many, if not more, okay, private residents who draw and would not know the condition of their well or the water into it or the damage possibly being done with this known contaminant source. So we'd appreciate your continued support on it. And to clarify, as you say, if we were to go with Mr. Gould's plan to put light sensory or light gathering or electrical generation panels on top of it, at first our thought is don't disturb the cap. So we went into his office for a meeting and we were disturbed. He assuaged our fears. De facto, it might be to our benefit to have the cap routinely monitored by the town as it would be should there be a solar array erected. But the continuation of the monitoring is important to us, it's important to our neighbors, and your continued support of the environment is appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're back. Thank you. So we are continuing to monitor that, and I'm confident that based on the anticipated, because really the question with the photovoltaic arrays is, are we going to do it on the current landscape of the landfill, or will the landfill be modified in any way to allow for more of the surface area to be used for photovoltaic for arrays? But in either scenario, we would continue to monitor the landfill and whether or not it is affecting the water supply, because obviously that would be a change in circumstances that the town was initiating in regards to that. We are not concerned about the work in neighboring parcels affecting it, but because we will be monitoring it for other reasons anyways, if that were to cause disturbances that would affect the landfill's interaction with the water supply or the aquifer, that would also be caught by that process regardless. So I think we can hopefully assuage those fears that the town is going to continue to monitor that, not just for this area of town, but obviously the aquifer affects the entire community. Any other members of the board have anything? Yes, Mr. Cohan.
Paul brings up an interesting point, as George had alluded to it, and the assistant town manager had pointed to the website where we see the different pressure zones throughout the town. Is there a page that we can direct them to look at where the private wells in the area are located? Obviously, that information is kept by inspectional services and the Board of Health. Has that ever been compiled in one location so we can see that in the vicinity of this area that we're monitoring? I don't know if that page exists, but that might be, if it doesn't exist, it might be something that we work with inspectional services or the Board of Health to see if that information can be gathered in a way that we can look at where the private wells are in the vicinity of this area that we're monitoring. Thank you.
Mr. Janelle?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that would be more of a challenge than locating, in order to be put in a map, because there could be hundreds of, and thousands of homes with private wells within a certain area. So what we encourage folks to do is, if you're looking for information on your particular well or the wells in your particular neighborhood, you can certainly go to either the health department, and they have all that information, or archivist Connor Anderson on the 4th floor, and he will be able to gather all that information. Additionally, for the gentleman who came up and spoke, obviously testing your well is a real concern. For folks who have town water, obviously the town does the water, and we're mandated by DEP to keep certain water standards. So how can you do that on your own when you have your own well? And the best way to do that is to hire a private lab, and they would do samples. Okay, lost the mic again. They do private samples of your well, and you can also go on the health department website, and there is a link to well water tests. It gives you information on what you should be testing for. And I feel that I have to give the disclaimer, but even though we have 2 companies there that we give the information you can contact, we are not endorsing either business, but it's just local business that are available to you. So if you have any question of your well water quality, reach out to the health department. If you want the location of your wells or nearby wells, again, health department and the archivist, and we'll gladly help you. Thank you.
Mr. Cohan?
Thank you. Yes, I was, when I was thinking about identifying, it's just, a dot on a map to the vicinity of this location. That might be something that we look into to see if it's that. It may be daunting. It may be something that the Board of Health and the inspectional service that has to keep track of this information might have access to. But also another way of addressing the issue is to zone out different distances from the location that we're monitoring to let people know that you're in the vicinity of this activity and that you should look at testing. Maybe that's something that we preempt to just keep people aware that they live in an area that is in the cone of influence as it relates to the possible location of their well. So it's just something to think about, I guess, just listening to the residents and responding to them. I think that'd be like something that staff might look at.
If the chair would indulge me, just to clarify regarding individuals getting their wells tested, we did that. And,
Okay.
And what you have to do with a town accepted someone to take the samples and then to go to an independent laboratory and then to clarify as to just what you should test for. It's in the order of $685, and you'd want to do that to protect your family. But it is no small thing. And even as to just what should you look for.
I understand. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions on the Cedarville landfill? Mr. Williams?
I'm Don Williams from 42 Carters Bridge Road, and I want to thank you for coming out and listening to us. This is an important issue for both my role as Vice Chair with George in Precinct 8, my role as President of the Herring Ponds Watershed Association. And what I'm here to do is ask if you would accept some help from us who know a little bit about water. I've already engaged some private people to look at the report that came out in January on the latest, because I think what we're missing here is a sense of urgency, and I think the urgency can be dealt with by looking at the progression of certain elements in the water testing as they have been done over the years. That would give us an idea of how fast we might have to work. And the question I want to ask is if you're willing to allow me and several other people to work with the town to expedite this information being known. Because to my knowledge, nothing has been said about how fast any contaminants may be moving. We know which direction they're moving in because there is plenty of information of how the aquifer is flowing. What we don't know is what some of the disturbances have done to change that, and we could plot that kind of thing. So the question is, I'm having some experts look at this report that I've gotten from January. I'm going to go in and talk to Kendra Martin about it and find out what she knows. But so far, I haven't seen anything about the progression of these elements. So we're willing to help. And I think that the time is right with this group of people sitting at that table to offer that and to hopefully have it accepted in good faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. We can certainly follow up with you about that after the meeting. It sounds like something we could potentially work on, but we will follow up with you about that. Thank you.
Mr. Canty, can I ask a question, follow-up question to that?
You can, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's a very interesting idea. I love data, so I'd be very interested in seeing that data. I'm just curious what kind of historical data we do have to trace the contaminants. Is that something that you're suggesting we need to pull together, or do you actually have some of that historical data that we can use?
No, it is there.
It's not there.
It just needs to be analyzed as far as I know, which is not fun for a lot of people except us nerds, and we're willing to do it.
All right, so our audio is popping in and out. We're working on that, but we're making do with that. So the next resident, please like to take to the podium and ask a question. Yes, Ms. Tompkins?
Just pull up my comments here. Good evening. My name's Emily Tompkins. I'm precinct 14. A lot of the conversation about affordability in Plymouth is focused on how it impacts seniors and the unhoused. While these certainly are important demographics to support, often left out of those conversations is how it's becoming unaffordable for the younger generations, for people like me. I'm 32 years old and a lifelong resident, as is my husband, and most of my family, young and old, live here. Plymouth is my home. Despite my husband and I having good jobs, we couldn't find a house here that we could afford for years, and we were stuck renting downtown in a less than desirable apartment, paying someone else's mortgage. A one-bedroom apartment is going for at least $2,300 right now. If you're lucky, you can find an old apartment building that is less than $2,000, but you could also end up dealing with landlords who are not taking good care of their complex, making cheap, quick fixes, and not addressing serious issues like the roof leaking into your apartment. Your housing also rests on the landlord's whim to increase rent. At any moment, you could have to leave your home and the town in general due to increases in rent. We eventually found a home last year after a long search, but we're some of the lucky ones. We're also in that cost burden category, meaning more than 30% of our household income is going toward housing. We didn't want to waste any more years renting. My mortgage as a first-time home buyer is more than double my rent of my crappy apartment. Luckily, we're not living paycheck to paycheck, as many young people are, and we have savings. Many young people have to leave Plymouth in order to find reasonable housing and a job that pays enough for the cost of living these days. We have an amazing school system here, but many skilled and talented graduates have to leave Plymouth to afford housing and to find a job that pays well. We spend so much money on our great education system, but so many of those students can't stay here, and we lose that return of investment in the town. We have many service and retail jobs in Plymouth, but other than starting your own business, which many people aren't interested in doing, often is a gamble, the jobs that can support the housing costs are in other towns and cities, not in Plymouth. $20 an hour in our area doesn't get you very far. I commute nearly an hour to my job, which for many young people like me, we're spending our money elsewhere and wasting time commuting when we could be getting involved in our community, enjoying its many attractions, and being with our families. Many people younger than me have no realistic path towards home ownership right now. We have difficulty affording these so-called affordable rents and finding a job that is keeping up with the cost of living. I know this is a growing challenge nationwide, but I implore us to think about our younger people on our local level, as this is our closest opportunity to have an impact in our daily lives. So my questions are, what can Plymouth do to make housing more affordable for 20 to 30-year-olds? And how do we encourage businesses that provide decent paying jobs?
Thank you, Ms. Comte. So obviously the issue of affordability is significant, not just, often when we talk about affordability, it's targeted towards seniors or it's targeted towards people in unstable housing or the unhoused. But I do think Ms. Tompkins raises a good point about there's a demographic of Plymouth's younger generation, say your 25 to 35-year-olds that are having difficulty staying in Plymouth, that they grew up here and they'd like to stay here, but they can't find a place to actually reside here long term, because you can only live at home with mom and dad for so long. You're only willing to do that, and they're only willing to have you for so long. So I think that part of the solution, that the more affordable housing stock that we have throughout the community, the more every demographic that's affected benefits, particularly if it's not restricted to an age group or a subcategory. It makes sense to restrict some of that to seniors or some of it to things like veterans or things of that nature, but producing more reasonably affordable housing throughout the community is a benefit. The town, at the town meeting in the fall, passed the first step of a three-step process for a land bank that would involve affordable housing that's cheaper than the 80% that's standard throughout the area, that's instead of 60% AMI, area median income, so it's more achievable for someone, a working class individual, to actually buy that, regardless of their age demographic. But another good point is increasing the amount of good jobs that we have. We're going through a master planning process in the community right now, and a large percentage of people that work in Plymouth do not live here. I think it's about 70%, about 80% of people that live in Plymouth don't work here. So you can basically, for many folks, you can afford to either live in Plymouth or work here, but you can't afford to do both. And so we're pricing ourselves out of our own community with some of our decisions and our choices. So being able, in order to solve that, we need to, number one, like I said earlier, increase that affordable housing stock, which lowers the cost of all housing, including other housing options. But you also need to provide more better paying jobs throughout the community so that more people can afford, because our cost of living is still high from where we are in this country and where we are in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and there's only so much we can do about that, the fundamental costs of living. So we need to look at what businesses we'd like to attract, to do what types of things in our community, provide what types of services, what types of jobs, and we need to look at I would say, our zoning laws and our regulations to make sure that we're not making it unduly difficult for the right types of businesses to come in the right areas. We have infrastructure in certain places that we've zoned for commercial and light industrial that we could be, I think, making better use of and directing. If we have an industrial park, we should be using it for more industry or light industry and blue collar and white collar type of jobs that you can actually have a sustainable life here in Plymouth and have more of a work-life balance in the community. Yeah, Mr. Cohan?
Emily Tompkin, thank you very much. That was a nice synopsis of what one generation is facing when it comes to finding housing. But it is a challenge, and one of the things I'd like to be calling is for a housing summit in Plymouth to find all the different organizations that are out there working to create affordable housing, to come together and start seeing where their priorities might cross-pollinate, where we can get a larger result from the affordable housing building community. If you look at our affordable housing building community, there's a number of nonprofits out there trying to build units. But at the top of that pyramid is the Plymouth Housing Authority. It was designed nearly 60 years ago to create affordable housing. It was doing that very successfully in the 1970s, in the 80s, in the 90s. Well, not as much in the 90s. But when you look at Cherry Hill 1, if you look at Castle Hill in South Street, and you look at Homestead Terrace, you're looking at these projects, these endeavors by the Housing Authority to bring units online. That all came to a quiet end in the 1980s. I remember there was a woman here in town. She ran the Housing Authority. Her name was Joan Pimentel. Joan Pimentel ran the Housing Authority for some 30 years. She had a great deal of institutional knowledge, how to build housing. And she worked with the Community Preservation Committee in 2005, and we added 36 units to that complex. But as the years passed, there was a period in time where the federal and state funding was drying up around affordable housing construction. Starting in the 1980s, there was a lot of deregulation, and the reason why we're not only having a problem here in Plymouth, but across the Commonwealth, across the nation, is because all across the nation, starting nearly 40 years ago when they were deregulating this industry that built housing under Truman, under FDR, and Lyndon Johnson, and Kennedy, and throughout time, we were always committed to building affordable housing. The federal government and the state government played a strong partnership in building those units. We haven't been building those units for nearly 30, 40 years, and now we have a crisis all across the country. It's very similar to the banking crisis that we experienced. The deregulation that took place in the 1980s brought a crisis upon the country in around 2007 with the banking industry imploding. So I think that this is a larger question. We always have to keep that in mind because everybody's very interested in creating affordable housing. But one of the first things that we can do right here in Plymouth right now is start reaching out to the affordable housing community and getting people together to see what grants that might be out there, what tax incentives that might be out there. The town has been working towards this on numerous levels at different times, but I think that it would be a good idea to address the concerns because in the end, your description of one generation is very reflective of the many generations here in Plymouth that are looking for housing. So thank you for those comments.
Thank you. When the audio cuts out, I've been told that, oh, there we go. There's an example. So people online and on watching us on television can hear us whether it's cutting out or not. It's just affecting the sound system in the room. So if you're at a microphone, and for us that are answering questions at the microphone, if the sound, we'll notice when it cuts out, just speak up loud enough. Maybe go back a little from the mic so we don't deafen people, perhaps listening to us on an ear pod. But beyond that, at least the broadcast is fine, and we can just speak up to accommodate people in the room as we work through the audio issue. We might need to partner with the schools about their sound system. But with that in mind, Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes. Emily, thank you so much for those questions. Those two issues, affordable housing and better paying jobs, economic development issues, were central to my campaign. So those are two things that I'm also very passionate about. I've been meeting with a number of different groups who are also passionate about affordable housing. And clearly it's a national crisis. We're not living in a bubble here. This is happening everywhere, not only nationally, but I would say internationally too. It's just a huge issue. We need to get creative. There are people out there that are trying new things, trying different ways to approach this issue. I'll point to Falmouth, for example. Falmouth is doing a really nice job. They have of focusing the community and a lot of their resources to try to solve the affordable housing problem. They have an affordable housing coordinator. A lot of different towns have people in that role whose responsibility it is to kind of harness all of the resources, financial resources, so funding, developers, all of the not-for-profits that are also focused on this issue and really trying to come up with some real solutions. So I guess I would challenge all of us to start to think outside the box. We all know that the statistics about affordable housing and the 40B issues and all of that is just it's sort of like it feels like an insurmountable problem, but if we start chipping away at it and start bringing new fresh ideas to the table, maybe we can move forward even if it's just an inch, which would be far better than where we are now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else before we solicit another member of the public on this topic? All right, so the topic would be affordability for Plymouth's younger generation, both in terms of housing as well as livable jobs. Does anyone else have anything they would like to add in that regard? No one in the physical audience. Ms. Kennedy, do we have anybody on the Zoom that would like to chip in on that particular subject?
Not right now.
All right, we do not. All right, well, I appreciate Ms. Tompkins for bringing that issue to the front of our mind. I do think that affordability for our younger generation is important to have a sustainable community in the long term, because if we price our young out of the community, then what are we doing all of this for? In any event, any other questions from any other residents? Yes, I see Mr. Abbott first, and then we'll go to you next, unless it's a different topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm speaking tonight as the president of Six Ponds Association, of which there are many members here this evening, because we circulated our membership to ask them to come to this meeting, this important meeting, and we welcome you to this part of Plymouth, southwest Plymouth, and we applaud this initiative to meet in the various parts of town. As most of you know, Six Ponds is an association of residents that goes back actually 1952, and we represent the voice of the community from Halfway Pond Road all the way up past Plymouth South to Mast Road. And we stand for, and have met continuously on a constant basis, to express our support and our commitment to advocate for pristine ponds, wooded forests, active wildlife, and general enhancement of the gorgeous national resources of this area for the benefit of all the people of Plymouth. It's actually remarkable that our goals today are almost the same as they were 75 years ago for our forebears. And that's still what we're doing, and that's why we're here tonight. I know you've invited questions from the community, and I'd like just to focus on two items. One is the good, and one is the bad. Let's first take the good. We heard the Assistant Town Manager speak about the intersection at Halfway Pond Road and Long Pond Road. And I want to thank the town because you're really doing a good job there. The neighbors of that intersection, as well as the dirt roads that are impacted by that work, are absolutely delighted not that it necessarily has to take place, but the way it's being carried out. And I want to do a very positive shout out to the DPW Director, Bill Coyle, and his staff, as well as Makepeace and Dan Corsica, who are instrumental in making that intersection work progress in a very efficient manner. And I just have one question. Going forward, we've experienced now what it's like in July and presumably August, but what do you have planned when school starts? And because it's a whole different kettle of fish. And we of Six Ponds know that all the residents to the south of us, many of them are here tonight, and the other precincts 12 and 8 come up and use Six Ponds area to drive through to get to Clark Road, and they all pass through that intersection. So that's my first question. What happens when the school department, when the school's open, are you going to have new signage for the dirt roads impacted and so forth? That's the good. The bad, we all use Hedges Pond Road, and particularly of concern to us is what's happened at 71 Hedges Pond Road. I'm not talking about the landfill, I'm talking about the land next to it. Because I was at town meeting, and I remember very vividly that land there was, statements were made at town meeting that would be held in conservation. It would be marked for conservation. And then all of a sudden we see a big development proceeding with multiple warehouses, no mention of conservation, and this is a major concern that there's a loophole here in town that needs to be addressed. And I think what I might suggest the board to consider, perhaps citizens or a couple of warrant articles, one that would say that whenever land is designated at town meeting for a purpose like conservation, that it actually be implemented with some kind of a formidable restriction, whether it's a conservation restriction or whatever, that is legal and binding and doesn't allow the game to change down the road when a different board, a select board perhaps is elected or whatever. When you say conservation at town meeting, you mean it, and you must enforce it. And we've seen that happen with other parcels, and the only way they got permanent protection was with the conservation restriction. The other thing I think I'd like to suggest here,
Mr. Abbott, you're at 4 minutes, so if you have a second question, if you could ask that question.
The second question has to do with this whole thing about sand mining. I'm suggesting that we not wait for the state to act. That the town of Plymouth, as a matter of self-defense, pass its own bylaw, zoning bylaw, that absolutely eliminates sand mining as a consideration. And I'd like to see it done and say that any time you can show a massive amount of trucks coming out of these sand mining areas that totally inconveniences the community like Cedarville or whatever, that's grounds enough to deny any right to sand mine that project. Because that's absolutely killing us in different parts of town where these massive trucks for 2 years will go through a center of town trying to remove the sand because it's such a lucrative thing to do. So that's a suggestion for a zoning article. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. So the issue of 71 Hedges and sand mining in general in the community and the Commonwealth came up at our Cedarville on the road as well. And since then, I have had conversations with the Director of Planning Development and the Chair of the Planning Board in regards to, so there is currently a zoning bylaw that regulates sand and gravel removal. Zoning bylaw changes have to go through the Planning Board, and I anticipate that at our next, we have periodic joint meetings, the Select Board and the Planning Board, that we will be having a conversation about revisiting the current sand and gravel bylaw, particularly in relation to the definition of incidental as it relates to removal. And we also have the ability to, look at and make sure that we're enforcing the current law up to the standards that we want to enforce that. So that is work that has already started as a result of the last on the road that we had about a month ago. In regards to the first question, in regards to Halfway Pond Road, so we currently have a schedule in place where we anticipate the bulk of the work is going to be done by September, and there may be in October and maybe in November some finishing touches that need to be done at the intersection, but the work is being targeted to be as done as possible before school returns for that very reason, because that is going to drastically increase the intensity there. So the DPW is very cognizant of that, and I know is keeping precinct residents informed. I was contacted by a chair of Precinct 17 with some interest about that, and there's going to be some regular communication about that progress, is making sure that things stay on track and informing if there's any delays that come up throughout the project, as sometimes do in those types of scenarios. Does any other member of the board have anything they'd like to add in regards to that? Yes, Mr. Cohen.
Yes. So at the meeting that we had last month in Cedarville, and again at a recent select board meeting, I've indicated that I believe that time is of the essence. We need to be putting together a committee or working group, whatever the pleasure of this board in combination with the planning board might be, putting together this and giving them scope of responsibilities in some direction. I think that I know that from time to time we meet with the board, and apparently there has been some overtures, but as a board, I think it would be nice if in a future agenda we put it on the agenda to discuss how something like this might develop between the two boards, and what we might be looking for in terms of its makeup. There's a lot of different creative ways that we could look at that, including other committees and boards to appoint people to the committees or working group. But I think it does warrant us to probably, in the very near future, put something on the agenda so we could have a conversation about what we might be comfortable with, before we make our official overture to the planning board. My understanding is they know that we have an interest in this.
Yes.
But it'd be something that we should think about in the very near future, because like I said at the last meetings, time is of the essence in putting something together to demonstrate to the community that we're committed to revisiting this bylaw and updating it based on its successes and shortcomings that we have learned now over the last 15 years since it's been in existence.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Any other members of the board wish to? All right. There were questions on two different topics, but let's stick with Halfway Pond Road intersection for now, since that's more local to this particular area. Did you have something in relation to this topic? All right, we'll circle back to you next. Mr. Watkins, something in relation to this topic, Halfway Pond Road.
Thank you, Mr. Canty. Hampton Watkins, precinct 15, actually, but I own two properties in 16. The issue that is slowing, not stopping progress, because I know that Lawrence Lynch is working diligently, is in fact the presence of a utility line that we passed it today, all of us, I'm sure, that is being supported by a tree branch. If I recall from conversations with various individuals in town, that is a Verizon issue. And I think that my sense is that when it comes to moving utilities, we need to lean in somehow as a community to get, and I'm a Verizon alum, I supported National Grid for 5 years as a Verizon employee. We need to get a fire lit somehow under the utilities to move more quickly when there is an ongoing project and they're slowing progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. We appreciate that. I know DPW is working with the impacted utilities. They have some different schedules, but that their schedules are factored into the time frame that they have. Obviously, in these types of projects, not everything goes 100% according to the plan that's put out before the first shovel takes the first ounce of dirt off the ground. But I know that James Downey and Bill Coyle are working to keep everything on track. And as far as I know, everything remains still on track for that estimated conclusion point that we talked about earlier. So in relation to Halfway Pond Road intersection, yes. Kathy. Kathy Bell, thank you.
You're welcome. It's a comment, really, with the master plan. Living where we do here, there is only one access road to go north. And you consider as you're building and you're looking at the golf club that may be becoming a housing development, more and more traffic's going to be going down Long Pond Road. It is the only way to go. So my question to you is, thinking about the future, what are we going to do for another road? Because you cannot build more houses, have more traffic without considering another way to go north. For me to go north, I either have to go that way or have to go down to Cedarville and go around, or down Route 3. So my comment is, if this is going to be developed here, then we really need to think about another way to go north. And that is my comment.
All right, thank you. So part of the town is, for those that aren't aware, the town is going through a town-wide master planning process. Currently, we've engaged a consultant, Stantec, that's been working on this for the last 18 months or so. I'm actually on the master plan committee. I'm the vice chair of it. And we are on about 66% or so through, so about 2/3 of the way through that process. And transportation throughout the community is an aspect of that, not just roads, current roads or future roads, but all other aspects of transportation. People talk about public transit, people talk about bike lanes, access to that. So there's a comprehensive transportation analysis currently and in the near future, because the master plan is intended to last us about 10 years, and then we would do another one. That is going to be incorporated in that, and that will have some recommendations for future actions to be taken place. And it's not just the consultants sitting in a room deciding what's best for Plymouth. There's been a lot of community engagement, a lot of public forums, including here, about that particular process, trying to get as much input from residents as to what they'd like to see for the future of Plymouth, what they think the current and future needs of the community are as well. So that will be something we can look forward to in the master plan, which is less than a year from being completed and presented to the planning board for their approval and for town meeting to review as well. Anyone else on the board have anything in relation to that? All right. That individual, yes, I promised I would come to you next. I'm a man of my word.
Sam Carter, I live on Wildflower Lane.
Can you please?
Sam Carter, I live on Wildflower Lane. I'm a lifelong resident of the town. I actually was, I think, the third class to attend this school after it opened. My concern is the intersection of Bourne Road and Halfway Pond Road. It's what I would consider dysfunctional at best. The stop sign on Bourne Road is ignored by, I would say, 95% of the traffic that traverses it, sometimes at dangerous speeds. I use the intersection daily, trying to take a left at the Bourne Road stop sign with cars behind you gets pretty frustrating. I've had cars pass me, trucks pass me on the right, up on the sidewalk several times. I use that intersection as a pedestrian. I don't know how many times. I've almost been flat out mowed over. And I mean, something's wrong with that intersection. It was revamped, I think, about 6 years ago. I don't know if there's any thought process after an intersection gets revamped that we come back and look at it to say, was this an improvement? Was this a step backwards? And I think that was a step backwards. And also, just in general, with revamping these intersections, to throw traffic lights constantly at intersections, I think is a bad idea. I think we need to embrace the rotary concept quite a bit more, because it's just passive traffic control. They just work. I mean, I know they sometimes consume more real estate, but they're passive traffic control and they work. So I don't know if there's anything even in the works to reevaluate the Bourne Road, Halfway Pond Road intersection, but it's not functional.
Okay, thank you. So I know that when the DPW does look at different intersections throughout the community periodically, I have experienced that intersection myself, and I'm not a DPW DPW professional, but it is an odd intersection, to say the least, having driven through it many times. But I know what the DPW's work, generally speaking, is data-driven, based on industry-accepted standards. They have their own form of what's called a warrant, what is warranted by the traffic conditions and the accident rates and rate of speed throughout a certain intersection, and what the recommendations according to industry standards are to modify, improve, put in signage, put in the light, things of that nature. The issue of a rotary or a roundabout was brought up. Although they are a good form of passive traffic control, they're also wildly unpopular in most circles, pardon the pun, just because people don't like driving through them. I personally agree that they are a good form of traffic control, but there is a level of education with the public about that they actually do work, and the reason you don't like them is because they force you to slow down. And I'm sorry about that, but that's actually better for safety. So that is something to consider. But I do know DPW is looking at intersections throughout the community periodically. But Mr. Janau, do you have anything else? You used to work in our DPW department, so you have more on the ground experience with this than those of us sitting up here, if you'd like to add anything.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Now that the cat's out the bag and people know I worked at the DPW before, I also wanted to let everybody know that I'm a civil engineer by trade. So it's kind of an odd thing seeing a manager as a civil engineer, but it's one of the few benefits that I have, that when questions like these come up, I actually can answer them with more efficiency. So I agree with you. That intersection's a little odd. It's always been a little odd, and T intersections are kind of weird to begin with. So my interpretation of what happened here was that it was curved a little bit in order to avoid folks thinking that it could just be like a straight shot turn. So, however, as you mentioned, as the chair mentioned, actually, the DPW looks at these things, tries to do the best improvement possible within the limitations that we have. We don't know if the limitations are the amount of land available or not, because as you pointed out, Mass DOT it does encourage the town and the towns and the cities in the state to build roundabouts, because as you mentioned, they're passive. They don't require any electricity. However, they come with other issues. Again, public safety has issues. It creates issues for them to go to a specific cause if they have a call, plowing situations. There's a little bit of maintenance. So there's pros and cons to every option. But the biggest one, as the chair mentioned, is the availability of land. If there's the availability of land to build a roundabout, sometimes that's the way to go. Why the DPW chose this option, I really don't know, but there's definitely engineering studies that must have been done in order to pick this. But what I can guarantee you is, now that you've brought this to our attention, I can certainly circle back with our engineering team, have them take a look at it again, maybe do traffic counts, do some sort of observations to see, as you mentioned, how many people are not obeying by that stop sign, and see if there's any additional improvements we can make to the situation. Thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else on the Bourne Road or Halfway Pond Road intersection? Yes, please come to the microphone and identify yourself.
Tony Carterville. I live on Bourne Road.
Can you bring the mic a little? Thanks.
I don't want to blast you. I'm not into politics. I stop at the stop sign.
Good.
I don't mind that little turn. I do mind truck route going down Bourne Road. It's a residential area. Obviously, there's a school, elementary, to be there. I don't think 16, 18-wheelers should be going down there. I understand that it was supposed to be a temporary thing for the sand trucks to come and fill the bogs, to redo some bogs. That was, what, 4 years ago? I keep going up Town Hall. Nobody has answers for me how long that permit is good for. They keep upping it. That's what the people up at Town Hall are telling me. So I'd like some answers with that one. And also, cut the speed limit. If you're going to lower the speed limit, you have to have police trafficking the area and giving citations out. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cohan?
So sand and gravel removal comes with a permit, would have been issued by inspectional service in the planning department through the zoning board of appeals. So if you are noticing a sand and gravel removal operation in your neighborhood, and there's numerous around town, to get those permits, you would have had to gone to inspectional services at town hall and the planning department, where the zoning board of appeals may have heard a special permit regarding that. So if you want to check on the permit status and how long it's allowed to operate, you are correct. At times they do come in and ask for extensions to those permits, and those would be heard typically by the zoning board of appeals. So my advice to you is, and if you want to talk to me after this meeting, I'll help you through that process of engaging the right departments to find out the status of that permit.
All right. Any other members of the board wish to answer? I would say that the traffic, lowering the speed limit, because that comes up a lot, that can be sort of a double-edged sword, because when the DPW, if a speed limit is posted, it's different if it's not posted, then there's certain provisions that can be engaged in, but if it's posted, then a traffic study needs to be engaged in order to lower a speed limit. And as most of us know, maybe not us, but everybody else tends to drive faster than the posted speed limit, which the data then suggests if there's not enough accidents, which is a good thing, and people are driving over a speed limit that's posted, then that actually tends to drive the speed limit up, not maintaining it and not lowering it. So there can be an unintended consequence of a speed study, whether it be in this area or anywhere. So that's just something to be mindful of, because it is that data-driven approach, and that's why it seems odd, but that is what comes out a lot of times in those studies. Something on this topic? Yes, please come to the microphone. Bourne Road, Halfway Pond Road intersection.
Well, my comment, Suzanne Lucas, Precinct 16, Six Ponds. My comment actually goes back to the other intersection, but it's valid for this intersection as well, Halfway Pond and Long Pond Road, is again about the speed limit. The speed limit is posted at 20 miles per hour at that intersection. It has been for the last 35 years that I've lived there as an abutter. It's very rare that anyone is going 20 miles an hour, especially if you want to make a turn. My concern now is with the construction. The police details are there during the construction hours, which most days are ending at 3 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays, there's no patrol there, and people are going very, very fast. So I would just like to bring to your attention that traffic does need to be, the speed of traffic needs to be monitored a little bit more closely. There's a lot of barrels, orange cones, those big pipes. It's quite a dangerous intersection before the construction started, and right now it's particularly, and we've got another 8 weeks of summer traffic. So if the board could take that into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We can certainly circle back with the police department about speed enforcement and traffic enforcement in that area to make sure that we put that on their radar again, pardon the pun. So that's 3 on that particular topic, on Board Road and Halfway Pond Road. Again, we can circle back to these topics once we've exhausted the inventory of individual topics. But does any other resident physically in the room have any other topic that they'd like to talk about? Pat Adams?
First of all, thank you for coming here. I appreciate your effort to get down here. Circling back to the speed limit, I want to make sure that there's a public hearing, and I wanted to ask the assistant town manager at what time in the timeline with the public hearing speed for lowering the speed limit.
So, is this in relation to the 25 mile per hour thickly settled? Is that?
Yes.
So, my understanding, we haven't heard this presentation from DPW yet, but my understanding is that they're going to come before us next week on the 22nd, and they're going to be asking us to accept a regulation which would allow us to do one of two things, which would be either to impose a 25 per hour speed limit on any non-posted, non-currently posted road townwide all at once, or we could do it on a road-by-road basis. So those are the options that are available to us. I have my opinion about what I think in that regard. I think there's a lot of, I would want to know how many roads would be affected. We have 380-something miles of roads, and a lot of them would, I don't know the exact mileage, but many of them will meet a thickly settled, currently non-posted criteria. So I will allow other board members to make up their own decisions, but I think it would perhaps not be wise to make a blanket 25 mile per hour speed limit throughout the community in one meeting, and to instead ask the DPW to identify the specific roads that they would like to see this happen on, and then start a process where we can give people fair notice and opportunity to be heard, because depending on the road and the collateral consequences of adjusting the speed limit on a given road, that could impact other roads. So I do think there's value in hearing from residents. Maybe nobody will talk to us about it, but at least giving them the opportunity to be heard
I
about it.
believe the town meeting article specifically specified public hearings.
So so technically having an item before the board is a public hearing on it. So, but whether we could have a more expansive public hearing, or we could have a more limited public hearing. So, I think there's a point of diminishing return. If you had, 40 meetings about one particular road and whether it should be lowered, that probably would not be a productive use of time. But I'd also think that on the other end of the spectrum, personally, just unilaterally in one meeting lowering all the speed limits on non-posted, thickly settled to 25 is probably also not in our best interest. But we will see what the presentation is next week, and then we will see what the board's wish is in regards to starting a process or concluding it at that particular time.
And I wanted to comment on Tony's comments about the sand trucks. And Jason Silver is the Inspectional Services Director, and he's the one to call if you have any question about something you don't think is right. And I have two other questions, but it's not related. Do I wait my turn?
Yes, please. We'll come
Right.
back.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pat. Anyone else have any questions on the 25 mile per hour thickly settled speed limit issue? Yes, please. If you just got to come to the mic before you. I understand, but the people at home can't hear you.
If you do 25 miles an hour, maybe they'll do 35. If you keep it at 35, they're going to do 45. So it slows it down a bit.
It could.
My daughter lives at 115. She's sorry she couldn't be here. It's right diagonally from Lucy's path. There's like a curve in the road. She has been almost killed about 6 times trying to get her mail from fast-running cars.
Thank you. I'm sorry to hear that. Mr. Cohen?
Just to note, I heard a couple of comments about hearings and meetings, and the chairman alluded to it, the different levels of hearings. But when town meeting, and Fernando went to town meeting calling for a hearing, most likely it was to not only post it the normal ways you'd post a meeting, but also advertise in the local paper or wherever the town is required to advertise. I think there's been a change at a recent town meeting to advertise online that the meeting will take place. But like the chairman said, I would be paying attention to the 22nd meeting when we go over that material. So there'll be a further discussion on what you brought up tonight. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else on the board? All right. Anyone else physically in the room want to talk about the 25 mile per hour thickly settled speed limit? Casey, anyone on Zoom interested in this topic?
Nope, no one right now.
All right. All right. So that opens it up to other topics that we haven't covered yet. Yes, Ms. Holland?
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to ask questions and have them answered.
Yesterday, I read an article in the Plymouth Independent that was greatly disturbing to me. I'd like to just read a bit of it and then ask you some related questions. It concerns some women, a group of women in the Pine Hills who raise money to help Plymouth residents who might need some financial assistance. So here's what it says in part. A Plymouth student's father was detained by ICE, which planned to deport him. The nonprofit, these women, provided emergency relief since the mother was then the only wage earner. Now, the student and his siblings are being deported along with the father while the mother remains here to raise money for legal expenses. So my question, I don't know anything about Plymouth or how it would handle this, so I'm just going to fire my questions to you and perhaps you can answer. I'm not even sure that you can. Is there a protocol in place for the town of Plymouth to deal with ICE? Is our police chief alerted when ICE is in town? Do they have a warrant? Is there any due process? Does our police force know where ICE will go and whom they will pick up? Can we learn where these law-abiding, tax-paying residents of our town will be detained, and deported to? Do you, our select board, have a role of any kind to play in this? And what can we as private citizens do to help protect our fellow citizens? I really fear if we do nothing and we allow this to happen in our town, America's hometown, that we will really come to regret not standing up to this cruelty. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have had instances of ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, appearing in Plymouth, particularly in North Plymouth, but I know they've appeared throughout the community. I know about 6 weeks ago or so, they were right down the street from my house, detaining some folks or trying to detain some folks. So unfortunately, a federal agency acting within their lawful authority has wide discretion in how they conduct their official business. I have strong negative opinions about them coming to our community and not notifying our police chief and police department that they're here, because my concern when that happened about 6 weeks ago, and I issued a statement to that effect, was that they were in unmarked vehicles wearing uniforms that someone could buy at an Army-Navy store, wearing masks, and that if you were a resident in North Plymouth, how would you know that that's law enforcement acting under lawful authority versus people in kidnappers or other bad actors abducting someone off the street and trying to give the impression that they're operating under the law. I find that precedent to be very disturbing. I think it puts our local police department in a situation where if they were called by a resident saying that my neighbor is being, from my perspective, kidnapped, and they had no knowledge that ICE was conducting official business, it would put them in a position of responding to the scene not knowing that they were interacting with federal law enforcement and pitting local law enforcement against federal law enforcement in a way that could go bad for those individuals involved as well as for any residents in the community, whether they're involved in the encounter already or just nearby. So I find that very disturbing, and that is something that we are not pleased about. The Chiefs Association, the Massachusetts Chiefs Association, has reached out to ICE to ask them to identify when they're coming into a community in Massachusetts and engaging in official actions. That so far has been less responsive than we would like. I have had conversations as a member of the select board with Bill Keating's office about oversight of ICE and operations in our community. Unlike members of the select board who do not have this authority, members of Congress have the authority to inspect any ICE facility that they wish to do so as part of federal law and regulations. So they can put eyes on these facilities and eyes on these actions in ways that your select board or even your state reps or state senators cannot do that. If you are concerned about the actions of ICE, I would ask you to reach out to our federal delegation yourselves. You are our constituents, but you're also their constituents, and they deserve to hear your opinion on those subjects. Immigration policy is above and beyond the capacity of the select board to impose or enforce. From our perspective, at least my perspective, I'll speak for myself. If you are living in this community, you are a resident and a constituent, and you deserve the same rights and respect as anyone else. I don't check people's papers. I don't ask where you're from. I don't care what language you speak. If you live in Plymouth, you're one of mine. And I think we should be treating people better. I think we are better than that. And I think it says a lot about a community and a society about how they treat the most vulnerable and the most isolated. Anyone else on the board? Mr. Cohan?
I'd echo the remarks of the chair, but at the same time, I think that it's important to note that the federal agencies have their responsibilities to operate in a manner that makes the men and women working for that department, whatever enforcement they're involved in, to be safe. Can you hear me? So that's obviously important, but at the same time, we have a police force here in Plymouth, and we want to make sure that they're safe. We just last week brought on new staff members, new police officers, policemen and women onto the force, and we want them out, and we want them to be safe. As the chairman has indicated, the town has asked, and the Association of Policemen and Women here in Massachusetts have asked for greater knowledge of the operations in their town, because obviously if someone is out as a police person in Plymouth and operating on the streets of Plymouth and they encounter something that isn't identified that involves guns and detaining people, the confusion could erupt, and I'm concerned about the danger associated with our police force not knowing the operational activities of another law enforcement agency in Plymouth. So it's a concern of safety. People have law enforcement agencies have responsibilities to operate in a manner that keeps their men and women safe, but at the same time here in Plymouth we do, it's important that we constantly remind different department heads and different people in this capacity to be diligent on this idea of safety when it comes to our men and women serving in the police force here locally here in Plymouth. You have some questions. It might be helpful to submit them to the board in writing so that we could see your concerns and see how we could best respond to them. Thank you.
Any other members of the board? All right. Any other members of the public have any questions or comments in regards to the operation of ICE in Plymouth? No one in physical attendance? Anyone on virtual attendance, Casey?
No.
All right. Anyone physically in attendance have any questions or comments they'd like to make on any other topic that yes, Ms. Sheridan? You're joined by Marcia Sheridan.
Hi, Marcia Sheridan, Precinct 8. A few months ago, the town was given $2 million by the Plymouth Foundation. I'm wondering, has that money been put to use? Have they come up with a plan? Because the money was supposed to be used to develop an engineering plan. I'm wondering if that has happened yet. And I'm also wondering, is there a way we could be kept informed a little more regularly about what's going on with those intersections in Cedarville?
Okay, thank you. So I know that the 2 million that we received, we're going to use for those traffic improvements in Cedarville. But I'm not up on the day-to-day of where that money is right now and where that process is. Mr. Janau, do you have any specific details you can add to the conversation about where we are in the process?
I do not at this time, but I can certainly grab your information and I can either give you a call back or send you an email. Absolutely.
I'd appreciate that.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay.
And we can certainly, as I alluded to with the chair of 17 about the Halfway Pond Road intersection, Marcia, we can certainly keep you, I know you're on the Cedarville Steering Committee, we can keep you informed of that project as that goes along. We can have DPW reach out to you about that.
I feel like a pest, okay? Like I have to
Well,
keep
what
asking.
we're doing with the Halfway Pond Road is like monthly updates. That's what makes sense in that project because it's a few-month project. This is a bit of a longer-term thing, so maybe monthly wouldn't make sense, but we can follow up with you after the meeting and see and connect you to DPW with James Downey and Bill Coyle and see what level of, because obviously if we were telling 17 daily updates about the project, it'd be like, well, we moved 20 feet of dirt today, you know? So that's a little granular, not to, but we'll talk to DPW about what a sensible update schedule makes so that you're involved in the process as it progresses and you're not left in the dark.
Thank you. I
You're welcome.
appreciate that.
And Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did speak with the town manager about this back in late May. The $2 million has already been accepted and earmarked by town meeting, so it will move forward for the traffic design. I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe an engineering firm has been identified, and the town manager assured me that it would be moving forward very soon.
So we will get to see the plans before anything happens?
No, we're going to keep that secret. Yes, I believe there'll be public engagement on the matter.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else, anything on Cedarville traffic improvements? Yes, Ms. Adelman? Yep.
About the $2 million from the sale of 71 Hedges Pond Road. I thought that was specifically for the intersection of Hedge Pond and State Road. And I would like to make sure that that $2 million is only going to that project.
I believe it's for the intersection, well, there's intersections upon intersections in that area, but it is for the intersections in that area, yes. Because there's Hedges Pond.
I thought it was for one intersection, Hedges Pond and State Road.
I'm not, based on the density of those intersections, I don't know that you could only do work on one intersection, but it would obviously impact that intersection in that area directly. So it is for that small locus. It's not going to, you know.
Thank you.
Right, okay. Ms. Williams?
Jerry Williams, Precinct 8. I live on Carter's Bridge Road, and to get into Shaw's or Cedarville, I have to go through that intersection. And about a week and a half ago, I was trying to get to Shaw's, and I came out, and it was, as I got to the stop sign by the Little Red Schoolhouse, it was backed up by about 10 cars on Pond Road. So I thought, I'm going to turn around and go up Long Pond Road and down Hedges Pond Road, even though that's a lot longer, but hopefully it will move, because I knew, I could see that it was backed up from State Road all the way to Long Pond Road and then back on Long Pond Road. So I did that. I drove all the way around, and I got to Hedges Pond Road, and it was stopped. I got to look very carefully at what was happening at 71 Hedges Pond Road as I sat in traffic and saw the destruction of the land there. It took me half an hour to go the 6 or 7 minutes that I should be able to get to Shaw's. And this is happening more and more often. And I just want to stress how critical it is for the livability of those of us in Cedarville to be able to use our roads. And the summer traffic is just awful there right now. I just wanted to stress again that we really need to be working with the DPW needs to be working with the state DOT to try and get somewhere with these roads. Thank you.
You're welcome. And yes, the town generally is very acutely aware of the traffic needs of that intersection. It's been a long time coming. And it is like intersection upon intersection there. They're very tightly packed, and they all feed into and contribute to the problems that they have there. I know that I personally drive through that intersection quite a lot for somebody that lives in North Plymouth, because I'm down here a good amount. And I have noticed not only significant backup getting on and off the highway, on and off State Road, but also there's a lot of precarious driving in that area that could be improved by road improvements as well as enforcement. So that is definitely an area of interest to this board and to the town, and we're hoping to have more deliverables on that in the near future. I know Cedarville's been waiting for that for some time now, but we are finally in the process of actually making forward progress in that regard. Anyone else on the board, anything on that subject? All right, anyone physically in the room with a topic we haven't covered yet? Mr. Leiden?
Steve Leiden, I'm sorry I had my hand up. I guess you didn't hear me, but the state has approved both intersections on State Road. Hedges Pond Road and those two intersections, the state said that they would consider them as one project.
Yes, okay, thank you. Anyone in the public that's physically present that wants to talk about a topic we have not covered yet? Okay, I saw your hand first.
David Buckman. I'm hearing myself twice, and I've been hearing myself twice all night long. I wear hearing aids, and I've gone to 2 meetings this evening. It has been extremely difficult to understand what in the heck has been said, even though I heard it twice. Therefore, I would ask that somehow an improvement be made in this remote sound system so that when you're not in town hall, but you're out in the outback, we can really learn. I'm going to be quizzed when I get home by my wife as to what I heard, and I will have to say everything twice. So please, this has been punishment on my ears, and I implore you to sit back there and listen to what is being said. You'll notice I'm speaking very slowly. Thank you, and good night.
You're welcome. So we don't typically meet in this space, so the audio, the audio quirks of this sound system are new to us. We are trying, as we seem to have largely solved the earlier in and out issue that we were having, but the sort of a bit of a delay and the sort of echo effect that creates is something we came across when we were here, but that is something we will revisit and look into for future on the roads at the other venues to make sure that that is reduced as little as possible. Anyone else have any comments on the audio setup this evening?
Hi, Lori Downs, Precinct 17. I have a hot tip to share. I'm hard of hearing, so I'm watching you on Zoom, and I put on the closed captions, so I'm here in the room, not able to hear you, but I can read the captions. So I try to share that with other people.
Okay, thank you, Lori. So that is an option if you want to watch the closed captioning on Zoom, if that does help. And we do apologize for any audio issues. We are trying the best with the setup that we have at the school at the moment. Anyone else on the audio setup? Ms. Adelman on the audio setup? Okay. Okay. Anyone else on Zoom have an opinion on the audio?
No.
Okay. Ms. Adelman, an opinion on something else or a comment on something else?
About Atlantic Golf Course, I heard that Silvio say there was a letter. Is that the first, second, or third?
So there's been 2 P&Ss that they've sent. They sent a P&S, we sent a letter in response saying we didn't think it was a bona fide offer. Then they sent a second P&S, then we sent a letter saying we still don't think it's a bona fide offer. And then they sent us a letter back, most recently, saying that they disagree that the second P&S was not a bona fide offer.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And can I ask my next question?
Okay.
I know former select board member John Mahoney was passionate about the 1,000 acres. Can you tell us what's going on there?
Sure. Well, so we can give you some of that information because it is something that's in executive session. But for those that aren't aware of what the 1,000 acres is, the 1,000 acres is about 700 or so acres off Bourne Road that is in sort of title hell and has been for a number of years. There's property that the town knows it owns. There's property that the town knows it doesn't own. And then there's a lot of property that is somewhat unclear as to who owns it. Some of the properties have people that have been paying taxes on them, even though they're not doing anything but paying taxes with them for a number of years. But then there are others that no one's been paying taxes on it, but it's unclear who was supposed to be, whether they've had notice. So the board has been looking at that property for preservation purposes, and we have been talking with a state agency about that. And they have been doing some title work on that, but we don't have any specifics we can report yet beyond that. That's what's happened so far. So right now, because of its title status, it is functionally in a form of conservation, one could say, because it'd be very challenging to do something quote-unquote productive with the land because it's unclear who owns it for much of it. But that is something that we have been looking at for a few years and continue to look at. Just it's a state agency, they've moved kind of slow, and we're working on it. Anyone else on the 1,000 acres while we're on that? Oh, we have some closed captioning on the Zoom. So hopefully if you're hard of hearing, you're not hard of sight. But because it is a little small, but we're doing the best we can with the setup that we have. So any other, anyone else on the 1,000 acres physically in attendance? Anyone virtual attendance, 1,000 acres?
Nope.
All right. Another topic that was brought up was the Atlantic Country Club in that question. Anyone have anything, those in physical attendance on Atlantic Country Club? Anyone, Casey, in virtual attendance on Atlantic Country Club?
No.
All right. Anyone in physical attendance want to talk about a topic we haven't talked about yet? Mr. McKay?
I have a simple question, maybe it'll be the last one you get tonight. Several months ago, we approved a design for a key to the town. We have yet to see a key to the town. I'd like to know when we're going to get the keys to the town.
All right. So the topic was about keys to the town, which I know that that is something that our communications coordinator, Casey Kennedy, has been working on. Casey, is there anything you'd like to share as to the current status of the keys to the town of Plymouth?
Yes, I talked to Mr. McKay, and as soon as I am back on the 28th, I am going to be proceeding to push this forward, so hopefully we'll be seeing those shortly.
Okay. And when she says back, she's going to Alaska for her brother's retirement from the military. So
20 years in the Air Force.
Congratulations to your brother. But there will be more to come on that. Anyone else on the keys to the town of Plymouth? No one in physical attendance? Anyone virtually, Casey, want to follow up on?
Nope, not on that.
All right. Anyone in physical attendance with a question or comment on something we haven't talked about? Yes, Bill? Oh, it's something we have talked about. Okay, we'll circle back. Ms. Sheehan?
Thank you. My topic is air pollution. As you know, last week there was an issue with respirable crystalline silica at the town hall, and you've been testing for that to protect workers. My question is, will the town agree to allow a free air monitor for silica dust or respirable crystalline silica on town land next to the Hedges Pond Road sand mine? We're also asking residents if they would like to have an air monitor, and this would be for free, and they can contact me. It will be installed and monitored by Air Partners at Olin College of Engineering, and it will be part of a program to deploy 15 air monitors in Carver and Plymouth next to sand mines. Air Partners and Olin has tested sand at a sand mine like that one on 71 Hedges Pond Road and determined that it is respirable crystalline silica and poses a health risk to residents. Professor Hersey at Olin College of Engineering is an expert in air pollution, and he will be overseeing this air monitoring program in Plymouth. And his opinion is that residents are at risk of exposure to respirable crystalline silica from the Hedges Pond Road sand mine, and if they are exposed, they will suffer long-term, life-threatening health impacts, such as lung cancer and silicosis. So again, the question is, in order to protect the vulnerable residents of Plymouth who live next to the 71 Hedges Pond Road sand mine, will the town agree to deploy a free air monitor from Air Partners and Olin College of Engineering in order to protect the residents? I noted that earlier tonight you talked about using the town landfill next to the sand mine for a solar project, which is for private profit. This is to protect the residents, and it's at no cost to the town.
Thank you. So first, taking up the last thing first, the solar project on the landfill is not for private profit. It would be bringing money into the town. Based on the solar farm, it wouldn't be a privately owned solar farm. It would be a community-owned solar farm.
Excuse me,
I didn't interrupt you when you spoke, Ms. Sheehan. I would appreciate the same courtesy to be extended. Thank you. So that is why that is being considered for that piece of property, and that's what it would be used for if that solar project were to be installed. And we're looking at the economics of whether we want to install it on the current topography of the landfill as it is currently situated, or whether we wanted to seek additional fill and a cap for the landfill to increase the viable topography of that, which would allow for more solar photovoltaic arrays. So that's as to that. In terms of the silica and air monitoring, we certainly welcome any resident that wants to avail themselves of your offer to allow silica monitoring devices on their property. They're welcome to do that. The town would need to know more information about what you're proposing. You could reach out to us after the meeting about that in regards to your request for that to be on public land, although we will point out that that land is not in public hands anymore because it is owned by a private developer. That is an action that was taken by a prior board of select board, not this particular board, by a prior town meeting, not this iteration of town meeting, but that is what that is. But we would need to know more information about that and about where you would suggest that it be deployed in order to answer that question, but we can certainly follow up after the meeting. Anyone else
Well,
have
if I
anything
may
else?
clarify
You may not.
my question.
You've had your time to speak, and I appreciate your enthusiasm for the subject, but would anyone else on the board? Yes,
Yes,
Mr. Cohen?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to allow Mrs. Sheehan to continue for another couple of minutes, if it's okay.
So what are you proposing, Mr. Cohen, in terms of a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to allow Mrs. Sheehan an additional 2 minutes to finish up her comments.
So you would like to extend Ms. Sheehan's speaking time by a period of 2 minutes. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Ms. Iaquinto has seconded. 1 second. Mr. Cohen has moved. Ms. Iaquinto has seconded. Do we have any discussion about whether or not we should extend the speaking time? Yes, Mr. Golden?
Yeah, I would just ask if anyone in the audience has any further questions or comments for the board. I would ask if anyone in the audience has any further questions or comments for the board, please raise your hand.
There's
several.
At least, yes.
We're not calling you up. We're not calling you up, ma'am.
Rosemary Smith, I agree with everything.
Ma'am, we're not, he was just polling whether you wanted to say something, not asking you to say something yet. We will circle back to you, so you'll be able to speak. So that was a hand that was raised. There was another hand in the front that was raised. And I don't know if there were other hands in the audience that were raised. I can't see the full audience based on, there's at least 3 or 4, and there may be some on Zoom as well. Anything else? Any other discussion from any other members of the board? All right. Mr. Golden?
No.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
And myself, no. The motion does not carry. Thank you, Ms. Sheehan.
I just wanted to clarify the location is town land on the buffer zone
I
and on the
understand.
landfill.
Ms. Sheehan, this is a question and answer session targeted towards residents, and I appreciate your attendance, but we gave you the speaking time to speak, and you did not get a prevailing vote on the
I am a
extension
resident of Plymouth.
I understand your opinion on that. Okay, any other members of the
I
public?
reside at 308
any other
Rocky Pond
members
Road
of
in
the
Plymouth.
public beyond Ms. Sheehan that would like to speak? We had an individual that wanted to come up and
Rosemary Smith, I agree with everything that Ms. Sheehan said. Oh, okay. Okay.
Go ahead.
And I think a great spot, I agree with everything that Ms. Sheehan said. I also think a great spot for monitoring would be the fire station in Cedarville. And I'd appreciate you thinking about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this particular topic, silica dust monitoring in this area? Anyone in virtual attendance want to speak on this topic?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay. Anyone else in physical attendance wish to speak on any other topic that we have not covered yet? Seeing none. Anyone in virtual attendance, Casey, want to speak on a topic we have not covered yet?
Nope, no hands raised.
Okay, so now we can circle back to topics we've already covered. Does anyone, yes, it can be on any topic that you'd like to speak on. Please take the mic and you will have 3 minutes with which to speak.
Thank you. Kate Sakarik from Precinct 3. I'll speak louder. Kate Sakarik from Precinct 3. I have a question about the water situation. I'm not very familiar with the landfill and the runoff, but I'm wondering if these residents who only have well water and don't have access to town water, if the people who are, downhill from this runoff, why would they have to be paying for their water to be tested? Because that seems like well testing at $700 seems like a lot if they don't have any other option. And if this is something that, has been caused by a town error, is there, a way that you could do a lot of testing at once? That doesn't really sit well with me, but
Sure.
I could be misunderstanding.
Sure. So the town does do testing in the area around the landfill periodically, and the town, but that's really if private well owners want to test at their schedule, at their volition, they have the opportunity to do that whenever they would like to as well. So the town does engage in its own testing, but private residents are certainly welcome to do their own independent testing whenever they would like to, or whenever they're able to do so as well. So we don't really see the two as being mutually exclusive. They're two independent ways to try and ascertain the same result, basically. Okay? All right. Any other member of the public in physical attendance wish to talk about a subject that we have already covered yet? Yes, Mr. Smith, I believe it was. You're welcome.
Thank you for your indulgence. And in regards to the question, it's the
Could you speak a little closer to the mic?
The $685 involved, okay, say you had a private well and you wish to have it tested, the town doesn't provide that service. You have to seek out a company that is qualified to take well water samples.
Right.
And they have to come to your house and do that. You have to pay them, and then they have to transport. There has to be a chain of custody for the samples to be taken to a laboratory that is qualified,
right,
is recognized, and then there's a whole quality control involved in that testing laboratory. And the reason one would want to do it is because of the changes. I thoroughly agree that the town has a planning board and it has a zoning board of appeals, and it treats these excavations very thoroughly, okay, and it listens to our arguments, and there's sympathy involved in the boards. But you have one aquifer and you have one known source of pollutants. It polluted that there was measurable amounts such that the town had to have had the liability and had to pay for water to be brought to its residents in this whole neighborhood downstream. And now, with 4 or more of these almost injection wells being built that are built and designed and constructed to touch the aquifer, and now what we're going to be doing is pulsing that aquifer. And it's not just one well, because I grant you, you look at it very thoroughly. In the engineering department, you have it's wonderful, okay? And Mr. Gould is wonderful, okay? But the entire bylaw is meant to address one excavation, not 4 and 5, and not to the depths and magnitude that they are. And That's why we need these state bills and a moratorium perhaps. And again, I thank you for your indulgence.
You're welcome. So the town does continue to monitor the landfill and the land that it owns, and does do spot testing throughout to make sure that there's nothing adverse going into the aquifer beyond acceptable levels to ensure public drinking water safety. We have done that. We will continue to do that. And just to clarify, like if you are a private well owner in that area and you want to test your well, that is your choice as well. But we are doing that testing independent of that. So you have the ability to test yourself if you choose to do so. But you can also, if you're willing to rely on the town's testing, the town is engaging in that testing as well. So you have the opportunity to test yourself if you're in that situation, but you are also being protected by the town's efforts to test the publicly owned land and the landfill as well. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, Don Williams, 42 Cartersbridge Road. I just want people to know that if you don't have the company take the sample, it's a lot cheaper. All you have to do is take the water before it goes through any of your cleaning equipment, your softening equipment. And I think the last time I had our well tested, it was only like $125, which is still a lot of money, but it's not $640. You're paying a lot for those people to come out and take the sample and transport it. So just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Holland, on a subject we've already covered.
I just want to take a second to realize we're sitting here talking about two things that keep us alive. We're talking about air and water. And I heard, I think, Mr. Williams saying earlier that it's a sense of urgency. I feel as though we're in a dangerous spot here with both of these. There's a lot going on that's messing our air up, and we need to know what's happening in the air so that we can protect ourselves. And there's something going on with our water, too. These are not small issues. These are gigantic. There's nothing more gigantic than the air we breathe and the water that keeps us alive. So I just ask you, please, to give this such serious attention and not think it's something we can kick down the road, because I really don't think we have the time. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And the DPW does continue to monitor and the Department of Energy and Environment continues to monitor the water in the community. And then obviously we have agencies like the Board of Health that monitor air quality, as well as there are certainly state agencies that do that type of work that we interface with as well. We do take those issues seriously, and we are mindful of the concerns of residents in that regard. Jerry Williams on a topic we've already covered.
Yes. Jerry Williams, Precinct 8. In regards to, you keep saying that the town monitors the water around the landfill. What about the people whose wells are downstream, of the flow, the groundwater flow, not the above water flow, but the groundwater flow that are maybe half a mile away? I think that's what people are concerned about. It's one thing to test right there immediately, but it's a little bit further away, the private wells that people are concerned about.
No, I understand that. I believe that the testing that the DPW does is to make sure that it's not leaving the site of the landfill in an unacceptable level, which would mean it's not leaving that within that radius, then it wouldn't be going beyond it either. But if a private resident was concerned about their water quality, they have the option to do that private testing that was mentioned, either the more expensive or the less expensive option. Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We also have monitoring wells all across the community, not just for monitoring the flow of contaminants out of the capped landfill, but around the wastewater treatment facility, anywhere that, we are touching the aquifer or potentially touching the aquifer, we monitor the flow of contaminants. I really encourage folks to go onto the Board of Health's webpage and look at the water quality studies that have been done over the last several years. We consistently have high quality water in this community, and Massachusetts has some of the best quality water in the United States. So, while I think protection of the aquifer is something that's critical for us to consider, I also don't want the public out there to think that we are in imminent danger of having a spoiled aquifer. This board is committed to doing the work to make sure it's protected, but it's also very high quality water. So I would encourage the public to go online and look at that.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen?
Yes, earlier this evening, it was brought to our attention by the assistant town manager. On our website, there is a place you can go and look at pressure zones where water is being brought into a location. I think where we have locations where we have monitoring a large dump. Okay, you can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
Speak up.
I have no mic here now. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I just think that that we might engage, and I'll try to engage the different departments that keep track of private wells, and then look at locations to areas that we should be paying attention to see if there is zones and distances that might allow us to engage those people to be diligent on their water quality and how we can assist them on educating them on how to get it tested. So there is something that we as a town have collected a lot of information about where private wells are in relation to these locations that there's monitoring, and maybe we can consolidate that information in an area that we can use to examine the possibilities of increasing water safety. So it's something that I'm glad I heard the residents speak of it, because it's something now that I'll be looking into myself also.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Any other members of the board want to contribute? Okay. Any other members of the public wish to talk about a subject that we've already talked about? Mr. McKay?
Maybe this is fitting that I stand up here near the end of the meeting, because when you opened the meeting, I spoke significantly about the problems we have in Cedarville related to the development and the potential contamination of the water quality. And I can appreciate what you're saying about the town does everything they can do and they comply with all the standards. In Cedarville, we have a particular issue where we've done some things to modify the geography west of the landfill. And the underground aquifer goes through that modification, past the landfill, into Cape Cod Bay. And the people in our area are concerned about that particular area, not everything else in the town. So the plan we're on, and we want your cooperation, and you've agreed to do it, is what can we do immediately to protect those people that are in danger, and we need to do it very soon. And this is why I want the help of the town, the select board, and the departments to see if we can move forward faster on defining specifically whether there is a problem or not. And if there is a problem, we can't wait until next year when the water is tested again, and we don't want to put the burden of the local people that may be in danger to spend anywhere from $125 to $600 every time they get up in the morning and decide whether they're going to take a drink of water from their fountain. So the path we're on is to get accommodations and information from everybody within the town so that we can move forward very rapidly. And if it's going to cost money, we'll put it on the table for fall town meeting, because I believe that there may be people physically at risk in Cedarville, and they don't want to wait a year to find out their water is poisonous. So I'm back where I was at the beginning of the meeting, and I appreciate everybody's concern and the board's comments, but we are moving as fast as we can to try and get something on the table that we can say yes or no to protect the residents in Cedarville. That's a comment. I have a
Thank
question.
you. Thank you, Mr. McKay. And as Mr. Golden alluded to, I mean, the town is, with the sampling wells throughout the community, as well as the wells, the sampling that is being done around the landfill that we've been talking about, the town is confident that there is no imminent threat to the water supply posed by the landfill or by these projects. But the town continues to monitor that. If there were an issue with the water in this community, that would be priority one for town government, for the select board, and for everybody that works at the DPW, town hall, board of health, any of those people. So I understand that there are concerns about water quality, but there are not, the facts on the ground as they exist by the experts that we employ and that do the monitoring do not bear out that there is a current need to be alarmed that your water is poisonous, as was said, or otherwise contaminated, threatened by this way. We have been, we will continue to monitor that to make sure that that remains the case, because access to clean and safe drinking water is priority one for this board and for this government in your town. So that I do not want people to feel in any way that their water is being poisoned or contaminated and the town is not paying attention to that, not doing anything about that. That would never happen. If something were to happen, we would be reacting to that with all deliberate speed. We wouldn't have to wait for fall town meeting. We could call a special town meeting to do something like that. We would do something like that if there were a problem in this area. So that is something that we can and commit to today, and we will commit to in the future. Ms. Iaquinta?
Yeah, so I completely agree with everything that you said, Mr. Canty. Water quality is our top priority. However, what I'm hearing here tonight is maybe a little bit of lack of belief that we are doing everything that we possibly can. And I'm wondering if there isn't a way that we might be able to pull together some information to send out to the community just to prove the very points that you've been making.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to say, trust me and believe me, and I do, but I think that there's a group of people out here that have some serious concerns and aren't convinced yet that we
Yes.
are indeed doing everything that we can possibly do.
No, and I don't disagree with you, and I think one thing that we need to do a better job, and one of the reasons we're coming out on the road to communicate to people, is to listen to what you have to say and your concerns and answer your questions, but also to identify. One of the reasons we want to take Town Hall out of 26 Court Street for these meetings is so that we can actually get information and concerns from residents that otherwise may not reach out to us. And so we can identify what concerns exist in what areas of our community so we can address that. And also to build more trust between the different areas of our town and Town Hall and town government. Because there are a lot of things that the town is doing on a day-to-day basis that I don't think a lot of residents are aware of. And I think that if we did a better job communicating what we're doing, it would help people feel more comfortable with some of these things. So identifying the concern is helpful, and the solution is to continue doing what we're doing, but in terms of the testing and the monitoring, but also to do a better job of educating people about the things, the steps that we're taking so that they feel that level of comfort that we're trying to give them by doing that testing and monitoring. Mr. Golden?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure that folks understand that we all drink the water here in Plymouth. And I know that there's a particular concern in Cedarville. My daughter goes to Camp Clark. She fills her water bottle up with the same water that you folks are drinking. Whether I'm at breakfast at the Blueberry Muffin or visiting people down in Cedarville, I'm drinking Cedarville water. We care about this issue, and we are gathering data to support that even the water in Cedarville is high quality. And if you folks have other data that we haven't seen, please present it to us.
Mr. Cohan?
So I think tonight has been a very helpful exchange. I mean, it's one of the reasons we have advocated moving the select board meetings to different neighborhoods to hear from the residents. I don't think anyone is being an alarmist when they talk about their priorities in their neighborhood. Can you hear me? I'm sorry, I gotta yell. Oh, there, I think it's back. I think we're back. Yeah.
The mics
So I just
keep
want to
cutting
say
out,
that
folks.
one of the reasons that we have these meetings is to get out to neighborhoods, hear what the residents have to say, what their priorities are, and see what we're doing at Town Hall. The chairman is right. We could always look at ways of communicating more efficiently about what we're doing on a daily basis. I don't think anyone tonight here was being alarmist. They were focused on their priorities. Things are changing. There's more stress on the community. I was just suggesting what resources that might be existing at Town Hall and how we can compile that information to help people to have that helpful exchange. I think this discussion has been very helpful, but I don't think there's anyone that is being alarmist about the priorities from any aspect of the discussion. But I look forward to continue working with the board and the town and the residents to make sure that we look at how we do things and improving that every time we have an opportunity.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cohan. Any other members of the public want to address any topic that we have previously discussed? Ms. Sheehan, go ahead.
I'd like to provide the public and the board with a brief overview of how drinking water is regulated under the Safe Drinking Water Act, which is a federal law that's implemented by Massachusetts. So, as you know, we have several different public water supply wells in Plymouth, and these safe drinking water maximum contaminant levels have not been updated in over 30 years. So there's a website called Environmental Working Group, and you can go to their tap water database and you can look up what contaminants are in your water that exceed recommended safety guidelines. So I am looking at the Plymouth Water Department, and this is an environmental working group. These are scientific standards on water contaminants that exceed health guidelines. Dichloroacetic acid, haloacetic acids, nitrates, various PFAS, tetrachloroethylene. There are radionuclides in our water supplies that exceed health guidelines. And I have looked at these and I have studied these, and I would urge people to not just look at the Plymouth DPW reports on tap water, but also to go to the Environmental Working Group, EWG.org, tap water database, and put in 02360 and find your water department here in Plymouth. So that is accurate information and scientific information that will help protect the vulnerable people who are drinking from the Plymouth water wells. That doesn't address all of the private wells, and there is currently regulation pending at the State House. There was a lengthy hearing several weeks ago about the need for the state to have oversight and funding for testing of private wells. Thank you.
So just to clarify, there are not above safety guidelines of PFAS or radionuclides in the water in this community. There is not that. I will not engage in a unproductive back and forth with you, Ms. Sheehan, but there is not harmful levels of PFAS or radionuclides in the water in this community, and saying that at a public meeting, citing a third-party website like that is, in my opinion, irresponsible. And we're trying to get out and talk to people about the facts on the grounds and trying to educate them about the information that they need to know in their community. And while I would say that for the large, I would agree with Mr. Cohan, I do think that there is a benefit in hearing from residents that are concerned about their drinking water quality or their air quality. I think that's perfectly legitimate to hear about that, and we can address that, make sure we're, number one, monitoring those things appropriately, and number two, educating people that we are monitoring those things. But it is not productive to make statements that water is already poisonous, already contaminated, already affected by these things when it is not true. So we are going to do a better job of communicating what we are doing to ease the concerns that anyone in this room or anyone at home watching on TV or over Zoom may have. But we have been, we will continue to be monitoring your water, your air quality, and the other things within our control to make sure that we have a safe and healthy community. That is a priority of this board, of prior boards, and of this government. Anyone else on the board have anything else that they would like to add in relation to this? Any other member of the public have any other topics that they'd like to discuss? And anyone on Zoom?
I do have someone on Zoom.
We do have a Zoom attendee.
So I have
And it's not Mr. DiNardo, because he's in prison.
So I have a Mr. Keith.
Hi, everybody. Stevie Keith, 35 Scarlet Drive. I just wanted to kind of speak a little to the same pain that Ms. Tompkins spoke of earlier, being a young person with a family in town trying to, make ends meet and run a business, all that stuff. But I was wondering, economically speaking, we're living in such a time where there's a lot of technology coming about. I was wondering, what are we doing economically to try to bring in those companies so they can provide good jobs? Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, so once you said economically speaking, you cut out from the audio. I could read what you were saying, but
beautiful.
if you wanted to start again basically from there, I'll extend your time because of the audio issue.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so basically what I'm saying, economically speaking, is there like a way we can get together between maybe the Chamber of Commerce and some other people in town to try to lean into some of the AI stuff? Because I think that's really going to provide jobs for people long term. And I think we have a unique opportunity over the next few years to bring those jobs to town so we can get those kids that we put through the programs at South, especially where I own a plumbing company. So, getting good, productive people into the workforce so they can actually live and work in the area that they grew up in. But yeah, I guess my question would be, what are we doing to kind of bring those companies to town?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I guess could we get together and maybe build a crew to kind of go after those companies and see if they'd be interested in Plymouth?
Thank you. So no, I think that's a great question. I think that one of the things that when I ran for the board that I wanted to do was talk to existing businesses and see what their sort of pain points are, what's making it hard for them to operate in Plymouth, and also what are we doing well? What are things that the town is doing that are helping businesses or we're doing better than another community in the area, and we could see that as a positive in how we're able to attract the businesses that we want. So that's one thing we can do to identify the things that we should improve or the things we should continue to do with current operations. But I do think the idea of reaching out to the Chamber of Commerce is a good idea, and not just the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce, but perhaps to other chambers of commerce as well to identify that are more successful. We can also look at other communities that have the type of jobs we want and see and type of businesses we want in them and see what are they doing that we're not doing. Some of that is geography, which we kind of stuck with our geography to an extent, but some of it is regulation, it's zoning, it's permitting processes and things like that. so that we can make better use of the currently zoned economic development areas, our highway commercial, our light industrial, our industrial parks, that we intended, by the way they're zoned, to bring businesses into. But we want to bring not just more retail, not just more service, there's a place for those too, but also blue-collar jobs, trades, white-collar jobs, the type of jobs that create and support a sustainable community in the way that yourself and Ms. Tompkins earlier were talking about. But I do think pairing with the chamber and other chambers and then reaching out to other communities would be a good way of doing that. So I certainly would be in favor of looking to do that in the near future. Any other members of the board wish to contribute? All right, and any, oh, were you? Okay. I thought you were pointing out there.
No, me.
Okay. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To address the AI-specific piece of things, AI is powered by data centers. To have that kind of operation here in the town, I've met with the chamber, with the foundation, with private entities, on the possibility of bringing in data centers to the community. In order to do that, we need more power here in Plymouth. So it's a very long-term issue that won't be solved in the immediate time frame, but there are ongoing discussions about those sorts of things.
All right, thank you, Mr. Golden. Any other member of the board wish to respond? Any other member of the public wish to contribute to this topic? Anyone else on Zoom, Casey?
Nope.
All right, thank you, Mr. Keith. Anyone?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in the room have any topic they'd like to bring up whatsoever before we move forward? All right, anyone on Zoom, Casey?
Nope.
All right. Well, that brings us into the next topic on our agenda, having exhausted the public with question and answers. That brings us into select board discussion. So we have new business. Any members of the board have new business at this time? Yes, Ms. Iaquinto?
I don't know if this is new business or new business on old business, but we took a number of action items here tonight, and I was just wondering if there was a way that we could develop some sort of a log just to keep track of them in a more effective and efficient way that we could share amongst ourselves, perhaps.
Yep.
Assign accountability and responsibility for them.
Yep.
So then we have sort of an idea of how to best respond back to the public.
Yes.
And I do think, I like the idea of developing a more robust communication plan to get at some of the issues that we're hearing here in these community meetings. And so I'd be more than happy to volunteer my time to help pull that together.
Okay, thank you. That brings up a good point. I mean, I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Those that are still in attendance, those that have slowly voted with their feet that they had had enough of us, and anyone watching it at home or over Zoom, we are trying to get out there and hear from you and listen to you, but in order for that to happen, we need you to come out and talk to us. And I know like Pat Adelman and Jack Adelman did a lot of work to, in particular, to get a lot of people out here tonight. So I really appreciate the efforts that they put in, but I also appreciate the efforts that everybody did, taking time out of their night to come to a meeting. This is much better attendance than we get at 26 Court Street. So that's reason enough to come out here and listen to you guys and try and answer some of your questions. But we very much appreciate you being here, despite the fact that you can only occasionally hear what we're saying. But we will, in terms of keeping track of the action items, so I've been keeping track of the things that we committed to as like a board to do, and then we passed some of the things on to Silvio that he's going to keep track on in liaison with that. But we have, obviously, one of the big takeaways from Cedarville was the sand and gravel that came up again tonight, and then we'll circle back at some of the other things. We are soon going to talk about select board goals, so that we can roll some of the ones that happen before the goal setting into those goals, and then we can keep track of the ones that come up after that as they go along as well. But yes, I'm very interested in keeping track of the things that people are interested and concerned about so that we can address those things, whether it's a quick addressing and a quick response, or whether it's more of a medium or long-term project. Yes, that's very important, because it doesn't do us very good to go out and listen and then just not do anything about it. So we want to make sure we're following through. Mr. Cohan?
No, I think that's a great idea. We had some interesting conversations tonight. We've learned a great deal. We expressed a desire to take some action. So sorting through tonight's meeting, I'd be more than happy to work with you or anybody on the committee with staff to come up with a response to tonight's meeting. The other thing I just wanted to bring up is that, again, I mentioned earlier today, and I'll continue to mention it, I think the sand and gravel committee coming into focus sooner rather than later might be something that we should plan for in the near future to discuss. And just at some point, obviously, Memorial Hall was brought to our attention last week. I've had a chance to meet with town staff. It would be nice if there was a further update in the near future about the status of the circumstances there. So at probably the next select board meeting, I'm sure they'll include it because they would have had additional information to give us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I do anticipate that the status of that work at Memorial Hall that was done will be a topic that will be addressed in the town manager's report on the 22nd. Any other new business from any other members of the board? Any letters? Any old business? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn, having concluded our business?
So moved.
Mr. Golden has moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Iaquinto has seconded. Any objection? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
And myself, yes. It is unanimous. We are adjourned at 8:32. Thank you very much, South Plymouth.